You're listening to KC 101. It's Saturday morning, and it's time for Saturday with Seniors. We do this each Saturday morning at 10 a.m. By the way, you can hear all the previous episodes on our YouTube channel. You can just search Saturday with Seniors on YouTube. It'll take you right there. Or you can go to kc101fm.com, and you'll find a link to our YouTube channel. Over 50 episodes are available on there. And today it's part 2 with Brenda Elwell joining us on Saturday with Seniors. A big thank you to our sponsor, and that is Eisenhower's Tioga County Harley-Davidson, south of Mansfield. With the holiday season here, if you're trying to find a gift for someone who has a Harley-Davidson or just is a big fan of them, you'll find lots of choices there, from t-shirts to mugs to shot glasses, kids wear, and more, and gift cards too. All available at Eisenhower's Tioga County Harley-Davidson, South Mansfield. Do you remember when you first drove? How old were you when you first drove a car?
I was married before I actually drove a car, but I drove tractor. That's another thing that we had to do too. We burnt coal at the house. Then if Dad didn't get coal to put in the cellar for the stove. And I'm 10 years old driving one of those little gray Ford tractors. I mean, we drove it on the farm all the time. He had a little small trailer that hooked behind it, and my brother and my other sister and we would go up into Asaph to the coal mines and pick up the coal off the ground that they had dropped when they came out of the mine, put it in the trailer and
collect it to heat the house, the scrap coal.
Yeah, we did a lot when we were little.
Was an adult with you when you took the tractor to Asaph, or was that?
No, my brother and my sister and me. They ride in the back in the trailer.
Anything else you remember that time period? These are kind of neat stories of what life was like.
It was just fun. It was just good. When I got, I'm going to say 10, 12, when we were back here at Little Marsh, I used to visit with a neighbor lady down there. Her husband was on the school board, one of the school boards, and she always had ironing to do. She taught me how to iron a white shirt. She taught me quite a lot. She had a little room that would have been a closet that was a library, so she could take books from there home and read them and take them back. And my boys, her and her husband still lived there when we were still in the house. And the oldest one would work for her husband on the farm, and he was 12, 13. You get $5 a day no matter what you did. He thought he was just a big wheel.
$5 was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was, and you learned a whole lot.
Learn how to budget money and stretch the money. So how long before you went to like a big city?
I never knew there was a town of Elkland until I started going out with this one boy that was a hired man down to the neighbors. And he had a relation that lived between Osceola and Elkland. He was a nephew of the cop. Spencer Tracy was the cop, and he was a nephew of his. So I went with him one day down there. But I had never knew. We didn't go to town, Sabinsville.
That was the biggest town you would go to. A one-stop sign
or
town.
Or Westfield.
Yeah. Westfield was pretty big then, wasn't it, when the tannery was in its booming days?
Yeah, and they had the movie show. So at Little Marsh Schools, if you got A's on your report card, you got free ticket to the show.
To the movie? There was a movie theater in Westfield.
Yes.
I didn't know Westfield had a movie theater. I'm learning now.
Oh, well, right now it's Napa.
That was a movie theater then?
Right on Main Street.
Sounds right to me. It's been a while since I've been to Westfield, to be honest, but yeah.
I always got to go.
Do you remember any of the movies that you saw?
One was, oh my gosh, there was a foreigner of outer space something or other, and then they wound up taking it to Alaska, so it froze, so it didn't roam the earth anymore. I do not remember.
Somebody listening knows what that was.
And it scared my one other sister because she got to go also. She was sleeping in one big bedroom by herself, and she wouldn't go in there.
Back then, there was no TV, so this is the first time you really ever saw something moving of any type, a moving picture type thing.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother that left my one grandfather, they had TV, and we would go to Grandma's now and then, especially if she made Italian dinner. My dad wouldn't go because he didn't like spaghetti, but we would go since she had TV. But when we lived in Austinburg, the lady above us was a school teacher, so we used to go up there to visit her, and she would put TV on for us because we didn't have TV in our house.
Did you enjoy seeing TV then? Was that something exciting and new?
That was nice. I was going to say it was Mrs. Bush, and her son was the vet that lived up out in Knoxville, John Bush. And I was, maybe 13 or so. I used to ride on the back of the tractor when he was cutting hay. Somebody else drive the tractor, and I just ride along.
I bet you threw a few hay bales in your time.
Not a lot, because most of the hay was loose.
Those big hay piles that's...
Yeah, that's on
Yeah.
there. That's when I drove up at the farm. Had my dad on one side and the neighbor man, my girlfriend's father, on the other side, and the hay was rowed up. And I drove between them. Each one of them threw forks of hay on.
Pitchfork, you'd actually lift all the hay up and throw it in.
Yeah.
And then how'd you get it out of there at the barn? With a pitchfork too on the other end? Or
No, they had a hay fork. You pushed it down into the hay and flipped, and bars came out and held the hay. It was hooked to a rope. You had a track across the ceiling of the barn.
Yep.
And you would pull it up to that, or have the horse pull it up, and then swing it across and pull the rope another way, and it would empty it. So then you pulled it back empty and did the same thing again.
A lot of labor for that. And did you get to jump in the big hay piles ever in the barn?
We weren't supposed to, but you'd climb up the ladder into the hay mow and jump off into the wagon down below. That was Knoebels.
Yeah, your amusement ride of the time, huh?
Yeah.
Did you ever go out to any of the bars or anything? Or did women go to bars then?
Well, when I was little, because I was told the story that I used to dance on the bar when I was 2 years old for pennies. Yeah, so
You were a
was-
bar dancer for money
yeah.
at 2 years old.
Yeah. My mom told me that, so, and my one uncle. But my husband and I, we used to go to, well, now it's called the Rusted Nut outside of Osceola, but it used
That's
to
where you used to dance in the bar at 2 years old at the
Yes, no. We would go there, visit. I mean, he would have a beer and visit. I'd have one whiskey sour and visit. And there always was a fight.
In the bar, there was always a fight.
Yeah, there was always a fight, and so you just stand up away from your table if you're anywhere close to what's going on, get against the wall, and just let them go. There was this old fella that lived in Elkland. He was a nice old gentleman, and he would usually sit with me. And if there was a fight, he'd climb on the table and haul me up on the table. So nobody's going to hurt us because we're standing on a table.
And these bar fights, they just happened and they were kind of accepted. Then I guess now the police would be there and everything else. But
Oh, I know. And there was another fella who was a little handicapped. He was a nice fella. His mama would come to my husband's grandmother and visit. And this guy, he was older than me at the time. And I was going to say I was maybe 23 or 24, something or other like that. And he was a little bit older. He liked my oldest son. We lived there, and my oldest son was a tiny baby. He came one day and came in the house. He had a gallon of milk with him. And I said, well, don't you think you ought to get that home? But give it to me, and I'll put it in the fridge. No. It's for that baby. So he bought him a gallon
of milk.
Yeah, and he would go to the bars at sometimes, but then he would get really mouthy. They would shut him off, no more beer. Well, the one day, now that hotel in Elkland burnt. There was a big fire, and it was where the new courthouse is. It's there, and we were in there, and this fella got shut off and not going to leave. So they called the cop. The cop came, said, come on, I'm going to take you home. And he willingly walked out and got in the cop car, and they took him home. Well, my brother-in-law followed him home. When the cop left, he brought him back to the bar. But they didn't kick him out.
No.
No, 'cause my brother-in-law said to him, he left, he went home, but he's decided to come back. He was good. There was a lot of things that went on then that hurt nobody, and now it's bad. The world, honest to God, my grandkids are going to grow up in this.
Yeah, what do you think about today's world versus back then? I mean, it's nice that we don't have bar fights every night at the bar. That's good. But
Well, nobody got hurt with a bar fight. I don't know of anybody that ever went and got stitches. They might have wound up with a bloody nose and a black eye.
yeah.
I don't ever remember anybody getting hurt. Somebody just gave up. But the world nowadays, I don't like it very well. Especially the world of medicine nowadays. You can't go to a doctor's office if you really need to. You've got to go to an ER, which is maybe an hour away from where you live. Used to, you could just go to the doctor's office and they could take care of
Whatever was going on.
and if it couldn't be taken care of, then you get a bed in the hospital. And all of the people that are shooting people here, especially in the United States, and Israel and Gaza years ago, they had to same thing going on, and now it's even worse, and that's like here. It's kind of crazy to think that you can't go in a store. You think before you go into the mall, especially, that somebody with a gun is going to come in and start shooting.
And the whole world knows about it in about 10 minutes because of the internet and everything else, and then people copy ideas from each other.
Correct. Children are not disciplined like they used to be. And I'm not saying you beat them. They got a butt. Give it a good whack. Get face to face and give it a good talking to. You make a mistake, I'm after you.
And that was a whole different way to raise children back then. There's a lot of controversy about what the proper way, but kids were more behaved back when you were growing up and had more respect, I'm going to imagine, too, for teachers and adults. And
I only ever got one licking in my life that I remember.
But knowing that you could have got one was the reason that you only had one. Now, well, what did you do to get that one? I've got to ask.
I went home with a girlfriend when I was going to Knoxville school. I met a girl in my grade, and we were really close in school. And she said, why don't you come and stay all night with me? Oh, I don't know. I never stayed all night with anybody besides my grandparents. Mm-hmm. And, well, I guess apparently a few days later, I did. So my dad went to talk to the bus driver of where I was.
You just didn't show up. You disappeared.
Yeah. So he wound up getting me.
How come you didn't ask if it was okay to stay there? You didn't think of that?
No, you wouldn't ask, because I didn't tell anybody I was going. That's the number one thing you do. And so when I got home, got ready to go to bed, he come upstairs and he sat down on the edge of the bed and he said, that was not a good thing to do. And I said, I guess I know now. And he said, yes. And he turned me over and gave me 2 whacks on the bottom. They didn't really hurt. That I remember that they didn't hurt.
Emotionally probably did, because you let Dad down.
Yeah, you don't do that. That's like my house for my kids. There's always a big notebook on the kitchen table. If you leave this house, you write down where you're going from day one when they could write.
Yep.
And they do. I've got a whole
log of where everybody went.
I got a whole stack.
Wow. Very interesting. Anything else you want to share? We're almost out of time, Brenda.
No, I guess not.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Brenda Elwell, 80 years old from Little Marsh and Sabensville area, joining us here in our studios on Saturday with Seniors. Appreciate you visiting. We are KC101. You've been listening to Saturday with Seniors, brought to you by Eisenhower's, Tioga County Harley-Davidson, South Mansfield on Old Route 15. Don't forget Eisenhower's for your winter storage, and ask about their free winter storage option when you spend $899 or more on service, parts, and labor. Also, keep them in mind for your holiday shopping at Eisenhower's, Tioga County Harley-Davidson. And if you're looking to sell your motorcycle, they buy used motorcycles there as well. If you missed any of today's episode, go to our YouTube channel or just search Saturday with Seniors on YouTube, and you will find that we have close to 80 programs on our YouTube channel to watch or listen to that include residents from our area.